People keep asking why I did not leave Arroyo Wells after my first night there, and the answer is simple. By the time I understood the rules, the town already knew my name, my house number, and which lights I was afraid to turn off. My name is Caleb Turner, and 3 months before I moved to that little desert town in New Mexico, I was living in a one-bedroom apartment in Phoenix with a broken air conditioner, 2 maxed-out credit cards, and a divorce decree folded in the top drawer of my nightstand like an old parking ticket I could not throw away. I worked from home doing insurance paperwork, mostly storm damage claims and property estimates. The kind of job that sounds stable until the company starts cutting contracts and your inbox goes quiet for weeks at a time. Rent kept climbing. Groceries kept getting more expensive. Every month felt like standing in a room where the walls moved an inch closer while I pretended not to notice. So when I found a small house for sale in Arroyo Wells for less than the price of a used pickup, I did what desperate people do. I called it a fresh start instead of a warning sign. The listing made it look almost peaceful. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, working swamp cooler, half-acre lot, mountain view, wide front porch, no homeowners association, cash discount available. The photos showed a low stucco house with sun-faded blue trim, a rusted mailbox, and a porch light hanging beside the front door like a tired yellow eye. It was not pretty, but it was mine if I wanted it, and after losing my marriage, my savings, and most of the person I thought I was, owning anything felt like a miracle. The real estate agent never met me in person. She sent paperwork online, told me the previous owner had left town in a hurry, and arranged for the keys to be placed inside a lockbox on the front gate. I asked why the place was so cheap. She gave a little laugh over the phone and said desert towns are quiet if you respect the dark. I remember sitting there after she hung up, holding my phone and staring at that phrase in my notes like I had misheard her. Respect the dark. I told myself she meant the heat, the isolation, the kind of rural quiet city people always underestimate. I told myself every small town has strange sayings. I wanted the explanation to be normal so badly that I packed my apartment in 2 days and drove east with everything I owned in the back of my old Tacoma. I reached Arroyo Wells just before sunset. The highway had been empty for miles, nothing but red dirt, pale scrub brush, telephone poles, and a sky so wide it made me feel smaller than I wanted to admit. The town sign leaned at the edge of the road, half buried in sand, with the population painted over so many times the numbers looked like scars. Behind it, Arroyo Wells sat low and still in the heat. A gas station, a diner, a post office, a white church, and rows of small houses facing dusty streets. My new house waited on Juniper Street at the far western edge of town. The porch was bigger than I expected, the wood dry and gray, the front steps warped from years of sun. The lockbox opened on the first try. Inside the envelope with the key was a yellow sticky note written in careful block letters. Porch bulb replaced. Do not let it burn past midnight. I stood there with the key in my hand, the desert cooling around me, and almost laughed. Almost. Then I looked down Juniper Street and noticed every porch light on the block had just turned on at the exact same time. For a few seconds, I just stood there on the front walk with the key envelope in one hand and that sticky note in the other, watching the block glow itself awake. One porch light after another burned in the purple edge of sunset, not randomly, not as people remembered to flip switches, but together, as if some invisible signal had passed from house to house. Yellow light pooled over cracked steps, dusty doormats, potted cactus, old rocking chairs, and screen doors that looked like they had not been opened in years. I told myself it was probably a timer system. Maybe the whole town had one of those old municipal power setups. Maybe people out here were just careful about darkness because of coyotes, snakes, or teenagers with nothing better to do. Desert towns had strange habits, I reminded myself. That was all. Still, when I turned toward the house across the street, I saw a curtain move. Then another. By the time I looked down Juniper Street, at least 5 people were watching me from behind windows, not waving, not smiling, just checking whether I had noticed the lights. I carried my boxes inside and tried to ignore the feeling. The house smelled like dust, hot wood, and the faint chemical sweetness of old cleaning spray. The rooms were mostly empty, except for a kitchen table, a cracked mirror in the hallway, and a ceiling fan that turned slowly even though I had not found the switch yet. I told myself the power had probably been left on for the showing. I told myself a lot of things that night. After unloading the Tacoma, I drove back toward the center of town to get bottled water and something to eat. Arroyo Wells was even smaller than it had looked from the highway. The gas station had 2 pumps, one working. The diner sign flickered over a window filmed with dust. A white church bell tower leaned slightly against the darkening sky, and the hardware store had a row of porch bulbs stacked in the front window like they were selling medicine during an outbreak. I stopped at the diner because it was the only place open. The bell over the door gave a tired little ring when I stepped inside, and every conversation in the room faded at once. There were maybe 10 people there, a man in a feed store cap, 2 women sharing pie, an older couple at the counter, a teenage waitress holding a coffee pot. They all looked at me the way people look at a warning light on a dashboard. The waitress recovered first and gave me a careful smile. "You are the new man on Juniper Street," she said. It was not a question. I nodded, trying to sound friendly. "Caleb Turner. Just moved in today." The man in the feed store cap looked down at his plate. One of the women made a small sign with her fingers under the table, quick enough that I almost missed it. The waitress poured coffee into a mug I had not asked for. "House on the West End. Blue trim? That is the one." Her smile tightened. "Porch light working?" I almost laughed because it was the second time that stupid light had come. "Up in less than an hour." "Yes," I said. "I think someone replaced the bulb before I got there." "Good," the older man at the counter muttered. "Working is better than stubborn." I waited for someone to explain the joke, but no one did. The waitress handed me a menu, though she kept glancing toward the window as the sky outside darkened from violet to black. I ordered a burger and fries, mostly because I needed to do something normal with my hands. While I ate, I listened to the room slowly start breathing again. Forks touched plates. Coffee poured. A radio behind the counter played old country music so quietly it sounded like it was coming from another room. Nobody asked where I was from. Nobody asked what I did for work. Nobody asked why I had moved there. They asked only 3 things: which house, whether the bulb worked, and whether I had curtains. "Curtains?" I repeated. The waitress looked embarrassed, like she had said too much. "Sandstorms," she said quickly. "You will want thick ones." Around 11, I paid and drove back to Juniper Street with a paper sack of groceries and a knot in my stomach I could not blame on diner food. The town was almost completely dark now, except for the porch lights. Every house had one burning. Not windows. Not living room lamps. Not televisions glowing blue behind curtains. Just porch lights, each one making a small yellow circle in front of a closed door. People stood beneath some of them, silent shapes checking bulbs, tapping glass covers, looking at wristwatches. One woman across the street reached up and touched her porch light with the back of her fingers as if checking a fever. At 11:45 p.m., the church bell rang once. The sound moved through the town flat and low, swallowed quickly by the desert. Immediately, people began stepping back inside. Curtains closed. Rocking chairs emptied. Screen doors latched. On every porch, someone reached for a switch. My mouth went dry as Juniper Street began going dark one house at a time. I parked in my driveway and sat there longer than I should have, watching the yellow circles vanish. 11:47 p.m., 11:48 p.m., 11:49 p.m. The whole street was disappearing by pieces. I told myself again that it was superstition, maybe some local tradition, some leftover ritual from mining days, or power rationing, or old people with too much time and too many stories. Then, from the house directly across the street, an older woman with white hair stepped onto her porch before turning off her light. She looked straight at me, raised one finger to her lips, and pointed at the glowing bulb above my front door. I checked the clock on my dashboard. 11:50 p.m. My porch light was still on. I got out of the truck so fast, I almost dropped the grocery bag. The desert air had cooled, but it still carried that dry mineral heat that rises from pavement after sunset. My porch light buzzed above the front door, throwing a yellow circle over the warped steps and the envelope I had left on the railing. Across the street, the older woman kept pointing, her face half lit by her own porch light, eyes sharp under loose white hair. I raised a hand like I understood, though I did not. Not really. I only understood that every other house on Juniper Street was going dark, and mine was still shining like it wanted attention. I ran up the steps, shoved the key into the lock, and fumbled inside for the switch. The light clicked off at 11:51 p.m. The porch dropped into darkness. For 1 second, nothing happened, and I felt stupid for letting a whole street of strangers scare me into sprinting across my own yard. Then someone knocked on my front door. Not hard, not urgent. 3 soft knocks, each one spaced perfectly apart. I froze with my hand still on the switch. The old woman across the street was gone from her porch now. Her house was dark. Every house was dark. The only light came from my kitchen behind me and the thin moon hanging over the desert. I leaned toward the peephole, then stopped with my face inches from the door. Something about the timing felt wrong. The knock had come after the light went out. I could not explain why that mattered yet, but some older animal part of my brain did. I backed away instead. A voice came from the other side of the door. "Mr. Turner, do not open this door." It was the old woman. Calm, low, close enough that she must have crossed the street. In complete darkness. I looked through the peephole then, because apparently fear makes you do the exact thing you just decided not to do. She stood on my porch holding a folded sheet of paper and a small silver lighter. She was maybe in her late 60s, short, sun-browned, with white hair tied at the back of her neck and a cotton cardigan pulled over a faded dress. Her eyes were not kind, exactly, but they were awake in a way no one else in town had seemed awake. I opened the door only a crack, keeping the chain on. She glanced at the gap, then at the dead porch light above us. "Good," she said. "You killed it in time." "Killed it?" I asked. "Turned it off. Dead, dark, quiet, whatever word helps you remember." Her voice sharpened. "Just never say alive after midnight." I stared at her. "I am sorry, who are you?" "Martha Bell. I live across from you, for now." That last part made my stomach tighten. She pushed the folded paper through the gap in the door. "I did not invite myself inside because your house does not know me yet, and tonight is not the night to confuse it. You need to read this before 11:59. I took the paper without meaning to. It was old notebook paper, soft at the creases, written in careful block letters. At the top, it said the porch rules. I almost laughed. I actually felt the laugh rise in my throat, nervous and dry, because it had to be a joke. A small town initiation. Scare the city guy. Make him think porch lights could be alive or dead. Martha saw my face and did not smile. "This town does not forgive bright houses," she said. Then she began reciting the rules before I could hand the paper back. "Turn off your porch light by 11:59 p.m. Midnight is too late. If any porch light remains on after midnight, do not look directly at that house. If your own porch light blinks 3 times, close the curtains and sit below window level. Never answer knocking from the porch after the light is off. If you hear whispering under the porch, keep your feet off the floorboards. If the streetlights turn blue, count the houses silently. Never say the extra number. If someone calls your name from a dark porch, ask what color the moon was yesterday. Do not believe any answer. At 12:12 a.m., check your shadow. If it points toward the front door, leave through the back. If your porch light turns itself back on, your house has been chosen. Do not let anyone else inside." The words came too smoothly, like a prayer she hated knowing by heart. I looked from the paper to her face. "Martha," I said carefully, "I appreciate the welcome, but I have had a long day, and this sounds like something people tell newcomers because there is not much else to do around here." For the first time, her expression changed. Not anger, fear. She reached up and covered the porch light with one hand, even though it was off. "Maybe the wiring is old," I continued, trying to sound reasonable. "Maybe the town has power issues. Maybe this is some desert superstition." Martha leaned closer to the crack in the door. "Mr. Turner, in 3 minutes, every house on this street will be pretending not to exist. If yours forgets how, the rest of US may pay for it." Behind her, somewhere down Juniper Street, a porch bulb flickered once in the dark. Then mine flickered too. I looked up before I could stop myself. The dead bulb above my door gave a weak yellow pulse. Once, twice, 3 times. Martha went pale. "Close every curtain," she whispered. "Get below the windows, and whatever knocks next, do not answer." I did what Martha told me, because the way her face changed made it impossible not to. The fear in her eyes was not theatrical, not the kind of fear people use when they want to scare a newcomer. It was old fear, practiced fear, the kind that already knows what comes next and still hates waiting for it. I shut the door, locked it, and dragged the chain into place with fingers that did not feel steady anymore. Martha did not knock again. I heard her steps cross the porch, quick and light, then fade down the front walk toward the street. For 1 second, I almost opened the door and called after her, because part of me still wanted an explanation that involved bad wiring, local pranks, or maybe a town full of lonely people who had turned superstition into routine. Then the porch light above my head clicked once. From the other side of the door, even though the switch beside me was still off, my mouth went dry. I backed away and pulled every curtain I could find. Living room, kitchen, hallway, bedroom. The old curtain rods rattled as I yanked them shut. At 11:58 p.m., the house felt too large for the furniture I had brought with me, too hollow, like it was listening through its own walls. I sat on the living room floor below the front window, just like Martha said, knees drawn up, the porch rules spread across my lap. I tried to read them again, but the words kept sliding out of focus because I was listening for the next knock. Nothing came from the door. Instead, at exactly midnight, every light in the house dimmed for one slow breath. The refrigerator hum dipped. The ceiling fan slowed. The little lamp beside my moving boxes flickered low enough to turn the room brown and thin. Then, from somewhere down the street, a porch light came on. I knew because the curtains glowed. Not bright, just a faint yellow line along the edge of the fabric, but enough to tell me one house out there had failed to disappear into darkness with the rest of us. Rule 2. If any porch light remains on after midnight, do not look directly at that house. I should have stayed on the floor. I should have kept my eyes on the paper. But curiosity is not loud when it ruins you. It comes in with reasonable thoughts. Maybe it is Martha's light. Maybe someone needs help. Maybe this is the moment where you prove none of it is real. I crawled to the front window and lifted the curtain with 2 fingers, just enough to see through the narrowest gap. The house at the far end of Juniper Street was lit. I could not tell which one at first because the street looked wrong in the dark, stretched out somehow, every driveway farther apart than it had been an hour earlier. The porch light burned a steady yellow over a small stucco house with a wind chime hanging still beside the door. The house was not moving at first. That was what I told myself. The heat shimmer from the road, the curtain distorting my view, my own nerves making distance feel strange. Then the porch steps slid backward. Not the light, not a shadow. The whole house moved, slowly and silently, retreating from the street as if something beneath the desert had hooked it by the foundation and was pulling it into the dark. My heart slammed against my ribs. I forgot to breathe. The yellow glow stayed perfectly steady while the house drifted back 3 feet, 5 feet, maybe more, leaving no drag marks in the dirt, no cracking concrete, no sound at all. In the front window, I saw 2 figures standing side by side. Their bodies were lit from behind, but their faces were completely dark, like the light refused to touch them. One of them raised a hand, not waving, pointing at me. I dropped the curtain and fell back so hard my shoulder hit a cardboard box. The room spun. I pressed both hands over my mouth, not because I was going to scream, but because some terrified part of me thought the house might hear me breathing. Under the floorboards near the front wall, something whispered. No one saw. My blood went cold despite the desert heat trapped in the house. The whisper had not come from outside the door. It had come from below the porch, under the wood, under the dirt, under the part of the house I had trusted because it was mine. Another whisper answered from farther down, softer, dragging each word like dust through a crack. No one knows where light lives. I scrambled back from the window until my shoulders hit the couch. The paper rules crumpled in my fist. I looked at the line I had already broken and felt a sick, childish shame, like I had failed a test I had not believed was real. The porch boards creaked. Once, twice, 3 times. Not a knock at the door. Not footsteps. A pressure from underneath, pushing up. The lamp beside the boxes flickered again, and a thin yellow glow leaked between the floorboards near the front wall, warm and steady, exactly the color of the porch light that was supposed to be dead. My mind reached for explanations and found nothing strong enough to hold. Old wiring did not whisper my mistakes. Heat did not move houses. Small-town superstition did not know I had looked. Then Martha's voice came from somewhere across the street, muffled by distance and darkness. "Caleb, get your feet off the floorboards." I did not question how she knew. I climbed onto the couch, pulling my legs up beneath me like a child avoiding something under the bed. The whispering stopped. For 3 whole seconds, the house was still. Then something directly beneath the porch tapped one careful rhythm against the wood. 3 soft knocks, the same spacing as before. And this time, it used my voice to say, "Let me in." I stayed on the couch with my knees pulled tight against my chest, staring at the floorboards like they might split open if I blinked. The voice under the porch had sounded exactly like me, not just close, not like a recording, but like the version of myself I heard in my own head when I was trying to stay calm. That was what made it worse. A stranger's voice could have been ignored. My own voice made every word feel like a thought I had almost spoken. "Let me in," it said again from beneath the front steps. Same rhythm, same dry little break at the end of the sentence. I pressed both hands over my mouth and forced myself not to answer. The rule said never answer knocking from the porch after the light is off, and for the first time that night, I believed the rules more than I believed my own instincts. The yellow glow under the floorboards brightened, thin lines of light cutting across the living room like cracks in a door. It was not coming from outside anymore. It was under the house, shining upward through the seams in the wood, warm and steady, the exact color of the porch bulb. The room should have felt brighter, but somehow the light made everything look flatter, less real, like my house was becoming a photograph of itself. I lifted my feet higher onto the couch cushions and tried to breathe through my nose. Dust moved in the light between the boards. Then the whispering began again. Not one voice this time. Several. They spoke under the porch, under the living room, under the hallway, traveling through the crawl space in slow circles. New one signed papers. New one sleeps alone. New one still keeps the ring in the drawer. My stomach dropped. I had not told anyone in Arroyo Wells about the ring. I had not even unpacked it. It was in a small cardboard box beside my suitcase, wrapped in a grocery receipt from Phoenix, because I had been too ashamed to throw it away and too tired to decide what keeping it meant. The whispering scraped softly along the underside of the floor. New one said he wanted quiet. New one said she never listened. New one said he was better off gone. My throat tightened. Those were not just facts. Those were things I had said during the divorce. Ugly things muttered in empty rooms or into my steering wheel after court dates. Things no neighbor could know. I told myself sound carried strangely in old houses. I told myself maybe I had talked in my sleep. I told myself grief and heat and fear were mixing together into something that felt supernatural because I was exhausted. But the floor under the couch warmed like sun-baked wood, and beneath it, my own voice whispered, she was right to leave. That did it. Not because it was the cruelest thing it could have said, but because it said it with my cadence, my tired little exhale before the word right. I grabbed the porch rules from where they had fallen beside me and unfolded them with shaking hands. Rule 5. If you hear whispering under the porch, keep your feet off the floorboards. I was already doing that. Rule 3. If your own porch light blinks 3 times, close the curtains and sit below window level. I had done that too, mostly because Martha had scared me into it. But the house did not stop. The voices kept circling. They were not trying to break in anymore. They were trying to make me step down, make me forget the rule for 1 second, make me plant my bare feet on the glowing boards and prove I belonged to the house. The digital clock on the microwave read 12:03 a.m. I watched it blink once, twice, then skip to 12:11 a.m. My breath caught. That was not possible. The night was slipping forward again, like the town had decided I was wasting its time. At the edge of the living room, my shadow stretched across the wall, thrown by the lamp beside my boxes. It should have fallen behind me. Instead, it leaned toward the front door, thin and long, one dark arm reaching across. The wallpaper as if pointing the way out. Rule 8. At 12:12 a.m., check your shadow. If it points toward the front door, leave through the back. The microwave clock changed to 12:12. The lamp flickered. My shadow sharpened on the wall and pointed directly at the front door. At the same moment, someone knocked from the porch again. Not underneath this time. On the door. 3 soft knocks. Martha's voice followed, urgent and muffled. "Caleb, open up. You have to come across now." I almost moved. Her voice sounded real, frightened, close. Then I saw the yellow light beneath the floorboards pulse in time with her words. My skin went cold. Do not answer knocking from the porch after the light is off. I turned my head slowly toward the kitchen, where the back door stood beyond a pile of moving boxes. Between me and that door was 8 feet of glowing floorboards. I could not touch them. I looked around wildly and saw the flattened cardboard wardrobe box I had used for clothes. It was still folded near the couch. I dragged it over, laid it across the floor like a bridge, and crawled onto it with my knees tucked under me, trying to keep every part of my body off the wood. The floor whispered under the cardboard. Caleb, Caleb, Caleb. The cardboard bent but held. I pushed forward, inch by inch, sweating so hard my palms slipped. Behind me, the front door handle turned once, slowly, though I had locked it. Martha's voice changed into my ex-wife's voice. Caleb, please. I forgive you. I did not answer. I reached the kitchen, grabbed the counter, and pulled myself onto the tile, praying tile counted as safe. The whispering stopped the instant my feet left the living room floor. Outside the back door, the yard was black, the desert stretching beyond the fence like a waiting ocean. Across the street, through the side window, I saw Martha Bell standing in her dark kitchen, holding up her silver lighter. She flicked it once. A tiny flame appeared, then went out. Come now, she mouthed. I opened the back door and stepped into the dark. The backyard felt colder than the front of the house, which made no sense in the desert. The air out there should have been warm, dry, and full of the day's leftover heat rising from the dirt. But the moment I stepped outside, a chill moved across my arms like I had walked into a cellar. I shut the back door carefully behind me, not letting it slam, because every sound in Arroyo Wells seemed to matter after midnight. The yard was mostly hard-packed dust, a leaning clothesline, a rusted metal shed, and a low fence with a gate that opened toward the alley behind the houses. No porch lights burned back there. No street lights. Just moonlight, pale and thin, laying silver across the weeds and the old footprints in the sand. For a second, I thought I saw my own footprints already leading away from the door, but when I blinked, they were only cracks in the dirt. I told myself to move. I told myself Martha was waiting. I told myself that crossing one narrow alley could not possibly be worse than staying in a house that whispered my private shame through the floorboards. Still, when I looked toward the back of my house, the windows were black and empty, and I had this sudden feeling that it was no longer my house at all. It was a thing pretending to be a house because I had signed papers and brought boxes inside. I crossed the yard with my hands clenched, keeping away from the wooden steps and anything attached to the porch. Behind me, from the front side of the house, my ex-wife's voice called my name again, softer now, almost kind. Caleb. I stopped with one hand on the back gate. I knew it was not her. I knew she was 200 miles away in Phoenix and would never come to a place like this after midnight. But the voice had picked the exact tone she used when she was exhausted from arguing and wanted both of us to stop hurting each other. Caleb, please, it said. You do not have to be alone in there. I almost answered. My throat formed the first sound before I bit it back. Rule 7. If someone calls your name from a dark porch, ask what color the moon was yesterday. Do not believe any answer. I did not ask. I did not answer. I opened the gate and slipped into the alley. The sand there was soft enough to take footprints, and I could see Martha's. Small tracks ahead of me, quick and uneven, leading toward her back fence. Halfway across, the town changed. The streetlights beyond the houses buzzed all at once, not yellow, not white, but blue. A cold electric blue washed over the rooftops and turned the alley into something flat and wrong, like a photograph left too long in the sun. My stomach dropped. Rule 6. If the streetlights turn blue, count the houses silently. Never say the extra number. I froze between my yard and Martha's, with the blue light leaking over both fences. I could not see Juniper Street from the alley, but somehow I knew the counting had to happen now. I climbed the low side of Martha's back steps without touching the porch boards more than I had to and looked through the narrow gap between her house and the next. From there, I could see the row of houses on my side of the street. I counted in my head. 1. The old beige ranch with the broken bird bath. 2. The green trailer with the sagging awning. 3. My blue-trimmed house. 4. The empty lot with the mesquite stump. 5. The brick house with the white truck. 6. Martha's house across from mine did not count because it was the other side, so I started again, careful, silent. But there was a house between mine and the empty lot now. A narrow 2-story house where no 2-story house had stood in daylight. Its porch dark, its windows darker, its roof too steep for the desert. I clamped my jaw shut so hard my teeth hurt. Extra number. Do not say it. Do not even whisper it. The front door of that extra house opened inward without a sound. My ex-wife stood on the porch. Not really her. I knew that before I saw the face, because the posture was wrong. Too still, like a person in a picture waiting to be described. but the outline was close enough to hurt. She wore the blue sweater she had taken when she moved out, the one I remembered folded over her suitcase. "Caleb," she called from the dark porch. "I forgive you." The words went through me like a hook. I wanted forgiveness more than I wanted to admit. Not romance, not a second chance, not even love. Just the idea that someone who knew the worst parts of me could stop holding them against me. My foot shifted forward in the sand. Then Martha's back door opened behind me, and a hand grabbed the back of my shirt, pulling me inside with surprising strength. I stumbled into her kitchen, and she shut the door without a sound. "No talking," she whispered. "Not until the blue goes out." Her kitchen was dark except for the tiny orange glow of a cigarette lighter on the table, unlit but ready. Maps covered every surface. Old town plats, county survey papers, yellowed newspaper clippings, photographs curled at the edges. Martha moved through the dark like she had done this 1,000 times, locking the back door, sliding a towel under it, then motioning for me to sit on a chair with my feet tucked onto the rungs. "Do not touch the floor if you hear it under here too," she said. I wanted to ask a dozen questions, but she put one finger to her lips. Outside, the blue streetlights hummed. We sat in silence until the hum died and the world returned to black. Only then did Martha strike the lighter. The small flame lit her face from below, deepening every line and hollow. "You looked at a lit house," she said. I nodded. "You heard it under your porch." I nodded again. "It knows you are new." She pulled one map from the stack and spread it across the table. Arroyo Wells, 1929. The town was larger in the drawing, street after street of little squares labeled with family names. Then she placed another map beside it, 1956. Fewer squares. Another, 1983. Fewer still. The newest map had whole blocks missing, blank spaces where streets should have continued. "People think vanish means a body disappears," Martha said. "That is not how this place works. The house goes first, then the papers, then the photographs, then the people who remembered who lived there start forgetting why that empty lot ever bothered them." She slid a photograph toward me. It showed Juniper Street decades earlier, fuller, busier, with children on bicycles and cars parked along the curb. In the middle of the photo was a pale blank rectangle, not torn, not faded, but empty in the exact shape of a house. My hands went cold. "What is doing this?" I asked. Martha looked toward the floor, then back at me. Something under the town learned that lights mean people. Names mean doors. Addresses mean a way up. She unfolded the latest map and turned it toward me. My house was circled in yellow ink. I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. Martha lowered her voice. "Your house is still on the map, Caleb. That means it has not finished choosing you." Martha kept the newest map open between us, her finger resting on the yellow circle around my house like she could hold it in place by touching paper. The lighter flame trembled in her other hand, though there was no wind inside the kitchen. I wanted to ask how long she had known, why nobody warned me before I signed the papers, why the agent had been allowed to sell me a house that the town already knew was dangerous. But the questions died in my throat when a low scraping sound moved under the floor. Martha's eyes sharpened. "Feet up," she whispered. I pulled my boots onto the chair rungs. She did the same without looking down. The scraping passed beneath the kitchen, slow and thoughtful, then faded toward the front of her house. Only when it was gone did Martha speak again. "You think the porch lights are there to keep things away?" she said. "Everyone thinks that at first." I looked toward the dark window over her sink, where the glass reflected only the tiny lighter flame and the pale shape of my face. "They are not." She shook her head. "They are bait. From sunset to 11:59, every light in town burns on purpose. Too many lights. Too many doors. Too many porches. It makes the thing underneath count wrong." I stared at her, trying to understand. "Count what?" "Houses with people in them," she said. "Warm houses. Named houses. Homes." Her voice changed when she said that last word, as if it had become dangerous over the years. "The first rule is not about darkness. It is about timing. Before midnight, the lights confuse it. After midnight, any light still burning becomes an address." My hands felt cold despite the heat trapped in the room. "So if one stays on after midnight, it knows where to go." Martha closed the lighter, and the kitchen dropped into near darkness. "It knows where to start," she corrected. That was when the shape of the whole thing changed in my mind. Until then, I had been thinking like a man trying to survive one bad night in one strange town. I thought the rules were about keeping me alive, keeping my house in place, keeping whatever whispered under the porch from climbing up through the boards. But Martha was talking about something larger. A system. A town pretending to be empty every night, so something below would keep losing count. She pulled an old photograph from the stack and slid it toward me. It showed a row of miners' houses, maybe from the 1930s, each with a lantern hanging by the door. Some of the lanterns were bright. Some had been blacked out with ink. The first families did not have porch lights, she said. They had kerosene lamps. After the mine collapse, the rescue crews used lamps to mark which homes still had someone missing underground. Light meant a name was still being called. Light meant someone was listening for an answer. Her eyes lifted to mine. Something below learned the wrong lesson. A sound moved through the walls then, not a knock, not a whisper, but a faint electrical buzz from outside. The streetlights had turned blue again. Martha cursed under her breath, very softly. "Count silently," she said. Through the gap in her kitchen curtains, I could see Juniper Street washed in that cold, artificial blue. It made the desert dust look gray and dead. I counted the houses on my side of the street in my head, careful not to move my lips. 1, 2, 3, my house. 4, the empty lot. 5, the brick house. Then my stomach tightened. Between my house and the empty lot stood the narrow two-story house again, the one that had no reason to exist. Its porch was dark, but darkness did not make it safe. It looked too thin from the front, like a house seen edge-on, as if it had slipped between spaces instead of being built there. A figure stood on its porch. My ex-wife again, or what wanted to be her. She did not call out this time. She just raised one hand and pointed at my house. Martha saw it too. "Your porch light is going to come back on," she said. I looked at her. "How do you know?" "Because it has your shape now. It knows where you stood. It heard your voice under the floor. It knows what forgiveness sounds like to you." The words hit harder than I expected. I looked back toward my house, and for one moment I missed my old apartment in Phoenix so badly it felt physical. I missed the broken air conditioner, the traffic noise, the neighbors arguing through thin walls, all the ordinary misery I had been so desperate to escape. Martha opened her lighter again and held the flame over the map, not touching it, just letting the heat darken the yellow circle around my house. "Watch," she said. The flame wavered. From somewhere beneath the street came a long, dry scrape, like a shovel dragged across packed dirt. Then the porch light over my front door clicked on. I saw it through Martha's curtain, a warm yellow circle blooming on my empty porch. My house looked relieved to be seen. Martha closed her eyes for half a second. "Once it relights," she said, "it starts teaching the rest of itself where you live." "Rest of itself?" I whispered. She leaned close enough that I could smell dust and cigarette smoke in her cardigan. "Arroyo Wells is not the only place with lights, Caleb. If it learns one true address outside town, it can follow the idea of a porch anywhere. Apartment balconies, motel doors, farmhouses, suburbs. Anywhere people leave a light on because they think light means safety." The room seemed to tilt. Suddenly the rule was not quaint or local or even just terrifying. It was containment. This whole dying town was a blindfold over something that had been practicing for almost a century. Outside, the figure on the extra porch lowered its hand. My house light burned brighter. Martha placed her silver lighter in my palm and folded my fingers around it. I wanted to ask what she was doing, but her face had already gone still in a way that frightened me. "You have to go back through the rear," she said. "Turn it off from inside. Do not speak to anyone you see in there. Do not let anyone else cross your threshold. If you fail, it will not just take your house. It will learn what home means to you." A knock sounded from Martha's front porch. 3 soft taps. Then my voice came from outside her door, patient and familiar. "Martha, let Caleb come home." The knock on Martha's front porch sounded exactly like the one at my house. 3 soft taps, evenly spaced, patient enough to make waiting feel worse than panic. Martha did not move toward it. She stood in the dark kitchen with one hand on the table and the other still closed around my wrist, her grip so tight I could feel the bones in her fingers. Outside, my own voice spoke again, gentle and reasonable. "Martha, let Caleb come home. He forgot something in the house." My stomach turned. The thing did not just copy voices. It understood what a voice was for. It knew a command would make me resist, so it made the words sound practical, harmless, almost boring. Martha leaned close to my ear. "Back door," she whispered. "Count the houses again when you reach the alley." Silently. "If the extra house is still there, do not look at its porch." I nodded, even though my whole body wanted to stay in that kitchen forever. Safe was not the right word for Martha's house, but it felt like a room with rules, and my house had become a question waiting for me to answer wrong. She pressed the lighter deeper into my palm. "If your floor whispers, do not put your feet down. If someone is inside, do not speak. If you see yourself, do not correct it." That last instruction chilled me more than the others. "What do you mean, if I see myself?" Martha's mouth tightened. "It has been under your porch long enough to learn a draft." The knock came again from the front. 3 taps. Then my ex-wife's voice joined mine, soft and wounded. "Caleb, I came all this way. You could at least talk to me." My throat closed. Martha shook her head once, sharply. "Not her. Not you. Not anyone. Go." I slipped out her back door into the alley. The blue streetlights hummed over the rooftops, turning the fences and sand the color of old bone. I counted in my head as I moved. 1, 2, 3, my house, for should have been the empty lot, but the extra house stood there again, narrow and dark, tucked into the space where no house belonged. I did not say the number. I did not even let my lips shape it. From the corner of my eye, I saw the dark porch of that extra house and the figure standing there in the blue sweater, but I kept my gaze on the ground. The sand beneath my boots had changed. It was patterned with footprints. Some were mine from earlier. Some were Martha's. Some were too long, pressed deep at the heel and shallow at the toes, like whoever made them had learned walking by watching people through windows. My porch light burned ahead, impossibly bright, turning the back edges of my house yellow from within. I reached my gate, opened it slowly, and crossed the yard. The back door was still shut. I was sure I had locked it behind me, but now it stood open 1 inch, breathing warm air into the night. Inside, the kitchen was dark except for a line of yellow light cutting across the floor from the living room. I stepped onto the tile and closed the door behind me without letting it click. The house smelled different. Not dust and old cleaning spray anymore. It smelled like hot glass, dry wood, and the stale air inside a room that has been shut for years. From the living room came the faint buzz of the porch bulb. I moved toward it, keeping to the tile as long as I could. The wooden floor began at the doorway, and beyond it, the living room stretched toward the front door where the switch waited on the wall. The porch light glowed through the curtain seams, filling the room with a sickly yellow pulse. I could see the couch, the moving boxes, the flattened wardrobe cardboard still lying on the floor like a bridge. And beside the front window stood me. Not a shadow, not a reflection. Me, Caleb Turner, in the same dusty shirt, same jeans, same tired posture, one hand resting on the porch light switch. My breath stopped. The thing wearing me turned its head a little, as if it had heard me think. It smiled, but not with joy. With practice. I remembered Martha's warning. If you see yourself, do not correct it. Every instinct in me wanted to say no, to tell it I was the real one, to ask what it was, to demand it get out of my house. But speaking would have given it something more. A correction. A truth. A cleaner copy. So I stayed silent. The copy lifted my hand, or its hand, toward the switch. The porch light outside flickered brighter. Under the floorboards, the whispering began again. Caleb came back. Caleb knows the way. Caleb brought the outside with him. I looked at the cardboard bridge. It still reached halfway across the floor, but not to the switch. I would have to step onto the wood for the final few feet. Rule 5 burned in my mind. Keep your feet off the floorboards. I scanned the room desperately and saw the moving boxes stacked near the wall. I pulled one onto the tile, stepped onto it, then dragged the next with my foot, building a clumsy path across my own living room while the copy watched. The cardboard bent under my weight. The whispers rose. My ex-wife's voice came from the front porch, right outside the door. "Caleb, I forgive you. You do not have to live like this anymore." The copy at the switch mouthed the words along with her. I kept moving, box to box, cardboard to cardboard. My palms sweated around Martha's lighter. I did not know why she had given it to me until I reached the final gap and saw the porch light switch plate. Someone had drawn a thin yellow circle around it in dust. Not paint. Dust, arranged from the inside of the wall. The copy's fingers touched the switch first. I flicked Martha's lighter open. A tiny flame appeared, orange and human, nothing like the yellow glow under the floor. The copy flinched. For the first time, its face lost the calm shape it had borrowed from me. I held the flame close to the switch, not burning anything, just letting real fire throw a trembling light over the wall. The yellow dust circle broke apart and fell. I slapped the switch down. The porch light died. The entire house inhaled. That is the only way I can describe it. The walls pulled inward. The floorboards flexed. Every whisper beneath me stopped mid-word. For 1 second, I thought I had won. Then the copy of me leaned close, its face inches from mine, and whispered without moving its mouth, "You turned off the light, Caleb. Now no one can see which one of us leaves." For a few seconds after the porch light died, I thought I had survived. The house became so quiet that my own breathing sounded too loud, too human, too out of place in the dark. The yellow glow under the floorboards vanished. The whispering stopped. The copy of me stood inches away, its face half lit by the tiny flame in Martha's lighter, and then it thinned into shadow, not disappearing all at once, but losing detail the way a dream loses shape after waking. Its eyes went first, then its mouth, then the outline of my shoulders, my shirt, my hands, until there was nothing in front of me but the dark living room and the smell of hot dust. I stayed frozen on the stack of moving boxes, afraid to step down, afraid to blink, afraid that if I moved too soon, the house would remember it was not finished with me. Outside, Juniper Street was silent. No tapping, no voices, no blue electric hum from the streetlights. The desert had gone still in that strange hour before dawn, when even insects sound like they are holding their breath. I waited until my legs started shaking from crouching on cardboard, then lowered myself onto the couch instead of the floor. Rule 5 still mattered. Maybe all of them still mattered. The microwave clock in the kitchen read 5:43 a.m. My phone, when I dared to check it, said 3:12 a.m. The old wall clock left by the previous owner had stopped at exactly midnight. I should have felt relieved when I saw the sky outside the back window turning gray, but the wrong times made my stomach sink. It felt less like morning had arrived, and more like the town had agreed to pretend it had. I stayed inside until the first real sunlight touched the kitchen wall. Only then did I open the back door. The yard looked normal in the weak dawn. Dust, weeds, rusted shed, leaning clothesline, low fence. My truck was still in the driveway. My boxes were still inside. My house was still standing. I had the stupid thought that I might be able to leave if I moved fast enough. I could throw the important things into the Tacoma, drive west, get back to Phoenix, sleep in my truck if I had to. I would rather be broke in a city that hated me than owned by a town that counted houses after midnight. Then I stepped onto the front porch and saw what had changed. Martha Bell's house was gone. Not burned. Not collapsed. Gone. Across the street, where her small stucco house had stood the night before, there was only a flat rectangle of desert dirt as smooth as if it had been swept clean. No foundation. No porch steps. No mailbox. No tire tracks. Not even the little line of stones she had kept along the walkway. The space looked older than the houses around it, like nothing had ever been built there at all. I crossed the street without thinking, then stopped halfway when I remembered Rule 2 and almost laughed because the sun was up and I still did not trust light. On my side of the road, the people of Juniper Street stood behind their curtains, watching. Nobody came outside. Nobody said Martha's name. That was when I understood what she had meant about forgetting. I ran back to my porch, and that was where I found her silver lighter resting on the top step, placed neatly beside the porch rules. The paper had not been there when I left through the back. It was folded once, weighted with a small desert stone. My hands were numb when I opened it. The original 9 rules were still there, but a 10th had appeared at the bottom in Martha's careful block letters. If someone new moves in, you must reach them before 11:59 p.m. If you fail, your porch light will burn for them. Under that, in smaller writing, was my name, Caleb Turner, Juniper Street. Witness. The word made the porch tilt beneath me. Witness. Not survivor. Not homeowner. Not free. I looked across the empty lot where Martha's house had been and finally understood the real meaning of the last rule. If your porch light turns itself back on, your house has been chosen. Do not let anyone else inside. I had thought it meant no one could help me. I had thought the rule was cruel because it left a person alone inside a marked house. But the truth was worse and smarter. If anyone else crossed my threshold after the light came back, The thing under the town would learn them too. Their voice, their address, their idea of home. It was not choosing one house to destroy. It was trying to use that house as a doorway into every person who entered. Martha had stayed out because my house did not know her. Then, when it started learning me too quickly, she gave it something older, something already tied to the town, something it recognized. Her house, her name, her place in the count. She did not vanish by accident. She bought me a morning. That was the price. Mine was still waiting. I tried to leave that afternoon. I packed 2 bags, got in my Tacoma, and drove toward the highway without stopping at the diner, the gas station, or the post office. The road out of Arroyo Wells ran straight for 12 miles through open desert. I drove for almost an hour. Every mile marker was the same. Every telephone pole leaned at the same angle. The town sign kept appearing ahead, half buried in sand, welcoming me back from the wrong direction. On the 3rd loop, my dashboard lights flickered yellow. Not white, not red, porch light yellow. I turned around before the engine died. Since then, I have lived in that house on Juniper Street. I fixed the curtains. I replaced the warped steps. I learned which boards not to stand on after midnight. Every evening before sunset, I checked the bulb above my door. Every night at 11:55 p.m., I walk the block with Martha's lighter in my pocket and knock on the doors of anyone who has forgotten. Most people listen. New people usually do not. They look at me the way I looked at Martha, like I am lonely, superstitious, maybe a little unstable. I cannot blame them. I sounded the same before my house started whispering through the floor. So if you ever move to a small desert town and a neighbor tells you to kill your porch light before midnight, do not laugh. Do not ask if this is some local joke. Do not look at the one house still glowing after 12. And if a list of rules appears on your porch with your name already written at the bottom, I am sorry. That means the town has counted you, and tonight, something under the dark is waiting to see if you count back.